Don't panic. Good advice from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm an adult who's recently been going through the process of diagnosis for high-functioning autism at the grand old age of 33. And I'm making this video to talk about all the issues that revolve around, because you wouldn't get a very good diagnosis for high-functioning autism if you weren't obsessed with researching things and putting things into nice little boxes. So I've been looking into it a lot. And I'm making this video to talk about all the issues that revolve around being diagnosed as an adult, what effects that has on you, and more than anything, dealing with this whole issue of everyone has a diagnosis these days. There's a perception, even though we're blatantly in the middle of a mental health crisis, it's been described, and you see articles appearing in the newspapers all the time talking about a mental health epidemic. There's this strange, cynical thing going around that you hear people talking about a lot, which is, everyone's got a diagnosis these days. Now, there's two ways of looking at that. If everyone, what they mean by everyone's got a diagnosis is a lot of people are getting diagnosed with different things, whether it be autism, schizotypia, ADHD, depression, chronic fatigue syndrome. There's all these disorders and syndromes and conditions that you can't see on the exterior that are being diagnosed. And so when they're making the point, because it's insinuated, there's no point actually attached to it. When people are making the point, everyone's being diagnosed these days, what can you read into that? What they're kind of saying is that they suspect there's something wrong there. What they're saying is that there's something that is making them suspicious. And I think rightly so. There's a suggestion in there that there is overly finance-driven, profit-driven pharmaceutical industry, which would like to have everyone branded with something wrong with them. Hopefully, it's something wrong with them that comes with a very expensive daily pill that they have to take for the rest of their life. And as a profit-driven business, it is in the interest of the pharmaceutical industry to keep finding more and more things wrong with people, because that's how they make money. So there's that suggestion there. But there's also another suggestion inherent in this everyone has a diagnosis these days, which is the suggestion of fakery and fraud and this whole crazy Protestant work ethic we have here in Western culture, where it's like the newspapers have us perceiving ourselves as being in a culture full of scroungers and skivers and people who just don't want to engage and people who want to sit on their ass all day and if they find some sort of malady that they can attribute to themselves and say, there's something wrong with me, haha, that's my get out clause. There's this perception that you can live a really nice life on benefits, which I'm not on benefits, but I know a lot of people who are, and you can't. You're broke as crap all the time. But anyway, there's that perception out there. So there's various different negative connotations attached to this. Everyone is diagnosed with something these days. But there's an explanation that not a lot of people talk about as well. And that is that what if this is just part of the process of mapping the diversity of different human minds? What if everyone isn't the same, and these things are not actually disorders, and these things are not disabilities, and these things are not illnesses, but they are just part of the spectrum of human experience? What if neuroscience has been making huge leaps and bounds in recent years? So what if there is just a sort of continuum of all sorts of different shades of grey of human brain and human mind, but the structures that we have in our society and in our world only suit the majority and only make life comfortable for the majority? If the education system and our attitudes to everything from public architecture to civilized manners to all the other various parts of life, what if all of those only suit the majority and we're living in a civilization that is just not very good at allowing for the variance, allowing for the people who have different types of mind to be comfortable? Then if that is the case, then it's very easy to end up in a situation where, if we are gradually moving down this road of having a much, much more monocultural society, a society where everything has to be the same, then people would start popping out around the seams, around the edges, people who don't fit the modern pattern particularly well, and then science and the medical world turns on them and goes, oh, well, you don't look well, you're not behaving well, you don't fit the model very well, there's something wrong with you. So it could well be the case, and this is what I'm arguing in this video, I think it's very likely the case, that what we're seeing here is the beginning of, in many ways, social and political revolution within society. What we're seeing here, and this even has a name attached to it, neurodiversity, is a situation where society really is quite restrictive in the things you have to be able to good at, the things you have to be able to good at. That's good English. The things you have to be good at, the things you have to be able to tolerate on a daily basis, the ways you have to live and behave are actually quite restrictive. And they do not compensate for the full diversity of human minds. Now, as neurodiversity and neuroscience keeps moving forward and keeps exploring and mapping out the human brain more, mapping out the different, well, it's logical that in the early days, which is where it is as a science at the moment, the first things they're going to successfully map out are the outer fringes. And although I don't know nearly as much about the schizotopy spectrum as I do the autistic spectrum, because that's been one of my little pet subjects recently, it is clear that they've clearly mapped out these two extremes on either that could possibly be on either end of the continuum of different human minds. And they are at the moment, because they kind of exist out there on their own with things like autism and schizophrenia and ADHD and these kind of things, because they exist out there on their own, then they're creating this image that there's this huge block of human minds, maybe 80 or 90%, that is normal, healthy, normal, happy, functional people. Forget the happy bit, no one's happy in this society, but anyway. You've got normal in the middle, and then you've got the extremes, the damaged, the freaks, the broken, the sick, the ill, whatever you want to call them, depending on how politically correct you're feeling that day, or how much Daily Mail you've been reading, to be honest. Now, what I think will happen is that as they continue to advance in neuroscience, they will start to gradually map in from those extremes and realise that in the future, whether you like it or not, it could well be that discussing your brain type is kind of like discussing your star sign, only with facts behind it. And that you realise that some people are inherently good at certain things, inherently not good at other things, that literally the part of your brain that deals with mathematics, for example, is larger than it is in the next bloke, which is why you're a bloody good accountant. Now, this has all sorts of potential pitfalls and slightly sort of scary totalitarian bits to it as well, because we might end up in a situation whereby people are, we don't want to end up with a caste system. We don't want to end up with like a rigid class system where it's like, you are in the intellectual class this way, you will fucking go that way because I told you to. Don't know why I always do the German Nazi thing. No offense, Germans. Now, I shouldn't distract myself with weirdness, because then I completely lose the train of thread of what I'm saying, and I've swore to myself I am not going to edit this video. This is all going to be straight off the cuff. So I'll have a little think. Yeah, so there is potentially scary sides to it as well, but there doesn't need to be. That is the job of the neurodiversity movement, which is rapidly growing, which is basically just saying, it's not that everyone's getting a diagnosis. It's just that this is the beginning stages of mapping out the human mind. This is just the beginning stages of working out that we actually have a really diverse society of minds. It's not just about different races and different religions and all those things, which are, to be honest, really superficial. But that a healthy society and a healthy human biological group is made up of a wide variety of different minds. And if you do not make space in society for all the different minds, then you lose all your Stephen Hawkings. You lose all your exceptional minds. A lot of people have looked back at Einstein and his writings and behaviours and the memoirs written about him and gone, yep, that's pretty autistic across the board, really. And various other historical figures, plus a lot of highly intelligent people who are functioning today have actual diagnosis rather than the historical figures where it has to be sort of guessed at. So when you say everyone's got a diagnosis, that should not be seen as a problem. Obviously, it's an exaggeration. Everyone hasn't. But the other implication of it as well is people seem to think that it's people trying to make themselves special, people trying to stand out, people trying to build their own identity and go, oh, I've got this label that makes me different, that makes me special. Well, we're all different. We're all special. Isn't it weird that that's become a corrupting kind of derogatory? That should be something that was an insult in the Nazi state. Oh, he thinks he's special. He thinks he's unique. It's like, yeah, he is. Everyone is. You just need to find your own little ways in which you can express yourself and function in society and be generally happy. Because amongst both the autistic and schizotypy types and the neurotypicals, which is supposed to be the normal people, I see a lot of really miserable bastards who are not happy with their life. It's not their fault. But, society isn't exactly a bed of roses where everyone's like, I'm normal, therefore I'm perfectly happy. So if people, I think it's a good thing that, and we could very well be on the cusp of quite a social revolution here. Now, that sounds like the sort of thing that a random hairy bloke often, revolution, man, tends to say, but let me unpack it because I think there's a very serious point to be made here. Not only do we have this rapidly growing rise in young people and children being diagnosed with ADHD and autism and all these kinds of things. But on the other side of it, we have a rapidly growing mental health epidemic in adults. And I'm just guessing, but from a logical brain's point of view, it might not be so hard to draw a line connecting the two. On the one hand, neuroscience and educational psychology and all the rest of it has advanced to a point where we're looking at children and going, okay, so we got different flavors of children here. That was the wrong phrase to use, or the Jimmy Savile references. Anyway, we got different situations of children here, different children's minds. Oh, that's embarrassing, isn't it? Got different children's minds going on, and when they're struggling, when they're not achieving their full potential, yes, we do start to put labels on them, but hopefully accurate labels. And what we haven't seen, because this is a reasonably new phenomenon, is how much of a positive effect this is going to have in decades' time. But what we have seen is that amongst the adult population, alcoholism, really heavy drug abuse, depression, nervous breakdowns, anxiety, all kinds of stress-caused heart disease, all these things are running at epidemic levels, amongst the teenagers, self-harm and suicide, and these numbers are growing all the time. So if we're living in a society where we do have a raging epidemic of mental health problems that have serious knock-on effects, not just for the individuals concerned, but that actually do cause huge problems for society as well. You cannot have large numbers of your society breaking down, not being able to function, ending up on the streets, killing themselves without it causing wider problems. I slightly lost my train of thought again. So what I'm doing here, purely wild speculation, but I'm saying that the two are connected. I'm saying that the rapidly growing number of diagnoses in childhood and now moving into adulthood of people who have things like ADHD and autism and all these other things, yes, there's that on the one hand, but that might be preventing the mental health epidemic of the future. As we map out the human mind, we might be able to realise that the only reason an awful lot of adult autists, hidden or masked autists, as that subcategory is called, like me, the only reason those people have made it to adulthood and then been discovered is often because things start to go a little bit fruity. Now, that also supports the theory that these two things are linked, because the main reason that the vast majority of adult autists are found is because they already have several comorbidities. I can't remember the word for it, but they already have various other mental health things going on. I'm lucky I don't. And I was discovered for completely different reasons. But when people have been, it is hard work to survive in this society. You really, if you don't fit the perfect mold of having the perfect career skills and the perfect social skills and all these other things, then you can fall off the ladder pretty quick. And what seems to be happening is that you're getting an awful lot of people who are developing anxiety because they've got a whole life, their brain has been different for their whole life. There's basic fundamental things they cannot understand about how people relate to each other and how people function. That may have lost them jobs, lost them lovers, caused horrible fights or whatever. And yet, on the other hand, there is no support for their situation because they don't even know they have a situation. And so a lot of these people are coming forward and reporting, I've really deep, dark, black depression, suicidal thoughts and all kinds of other things. And then they're getting analysed and going, hang on, yes, you have a type of brain that has been messing up these things. And if we had have spotted that earlier, then all the horrendous circumstantial life things that have happened to you, you would have been able to deal with better and you would have processed better. So when you hear that, now when you first come out, it's really not that far to the gay coming out, honestly. There is a lot of social anxiety that goes with autists and high functioning autists. You're never quite able to read exactly what's going on around you. You tend to be a bit inappropriate and a bit awkward and not very good at judging things. And when you discover that that is you, and that that's the label they put on you, and that that actually applies, and that there are simple little changes you can make in your life that make life so much more comfortable and so much easier to deal with, then the natural instinct is to want to talk about it, tell your friends about it, tell your family about it, tell the whole world about it, raise awareness about how it works, but also just get yourself a little space in certain areas so that you can function better. You may have a job, you may be a genius who has a job whereby you can make one massive contradiction. You are, 100% official nerd in your job, and you are really, really good at it. And you can be an expert in your field, but the lighting in the office makes you freak out, and you don't even know that it's the light. All you know is that every day you go in there, you get more and more anxious and more dysfunctional, and you don't know why, and you see all your work colleagues working away and doing their thing, and you start developing evasion and avoiding strategies and finding ways to skive off and this, that and the other, and it can seriously ruin your life rather than you making a good contribution when all you needed was to be able to work from home, or maybe even just wear fucking sunglasses. It really can change things to that extent. This is the contribution that is being made. So when you're trying to come out, you want to tell the world, hey, I'm me, I have a contribution to make, I'm an intelligent person, whatever. You may even have had sort of various slow parts of your development whereby your IQ isn't that high, and you're not like some kind of highly intelligent person, but you still have a unique contribution to make. And you get this slightly acidic, dark sort of set of responses, and it makes you scared, it makes you anxious to talk about these things. We're talking about this really helpful, but you're worried about going, oh yeah, you've got a label, yeah, well, they like putting labels on things, don't they? Oh yeah, everyone's got a diagnosis these days. So what I'm saying is, if you find out that you are not neurotypical, if you find out that you are in one of these groups that is being diagnosed in greater numbers, talk about it loud and proud. Do your research into it, work out all the little things in life, often tiny little things that will make a big difference for you and how you function, all the little eccentric things that will make life a lot easier for you, a lot easier for you to thrive. And just realise, don't let them slap words like disorder and things like that on you. Don't let people paint you as a scrounger. Just, cut those people off. Because you're right on the edge of something that I think is rapidly changing throughout all of society, and that in 30 or 40 years' time, they'll look back on this, and those people who have suffered and who've had various diagnoses put on them, there will be situations in the future, hopefully, I'm talking about if we don't go into some dark Orwellian 1984 type creepiness with Tories with cattle prods, which is highly likely, but I'll do some political rants on that later. Politics ranting was my former favourite pet topic before I realised I was autistic. Shit, I just completely derailed myself. But I think I'd finished. So, as I just said, I'm going to be starting to do a YouTube channel. I didn't just say that, but I just said that now. I just need to edit that. Stay coherent. I'm going to be doing a YouTube channel because it's fun. and because it's entertaining and hopefully a little bit interesting. And it's going to be the strange, eclectic worlds of my former pet topics, because every autist tends to have pet topics and obsessions, which is politics and geopolitics and imperialism and capitalism and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to be bringing autism and neurodiversity and all those things in as well. And as I've shown with this video, hopefully, they do link up. It's all about the fringes of this crazy monocultural society in which we have. So hope you enjoyed, and yeah, tra.